Welcome to What If Multiverse. Today's video is titled, What If All the Polar Ice Melted? Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our mind-bending scenarios. Imagine a world where the vast sheets of ice at the top and bottom of our planet vanish completely. The North Pole and the South Pole, once covered in dazzling white ice stretching for millions of square kilometers, now reduced to open water and barren land. This isn't just a change in scenery, it would reshape Earth itself, redrawing coastlines, displacing billions of people, and pushing our planet into a new and dangerous climate reality. But what exactly would happen if all the polar ice melted? Let's dive deep into the science, the consequences, and what experts warn us about. One of the most immediate and devastating consequences would be the rise of sea levels. According to NASA and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, if the Greenland ice sheet melted completely, global sea levels would rise by about 7 meters. If the Antarctic ice sheet were to fully melt, that would add roughly 58 to 60 meters more. Combine them, and you're looking at around 65 to 70 meters of global sea level rise. To put that in perspective, a 70-meter rise would flood virtually every major coastal city on Earth. New York, London, Mumbai, Shanghai, Tokyo, Sydney all gone underwater. According to research from Climate Central, this scenario would directly affect nearly 2 billion people who live in coastal regions today. Entire countries like Bangladesh, where tens of millions live only a few meters above sea level, would be wiped out. And low-lying areas of countries like Egypt, the Netherlands, and Vietnam would disappear beneath the waves. But it doesn't stop with cities. Whole nations made of islands would vanish completely. The Maldives, for instance, has an average elevation of just 1.5 meters. It would disappear entirely. Tuvalu, Kiribati, and the Marshall Islands in the Pacific would also sink below the rising oceans. Even places like Hawaii would lose large portions of their landmass. This isn't just about geography, it's about culture, heritage, and identity. Entire nations would be forced to abandon their homelands, becoming the first true climate refugees. Sea level rise is just the beginning. Ice doesn't just sit there looking pretty. It plays a critical role in regulating Earth's temperature. The white surface of ice reflects sunlight back into space, a phenomenon called the albedo effect. Right now, the Arctic reflects about 80% of incoming sunlight. But when the ice disappears, darker ocean water and land absorb up to 90% of that energy instead. That means the planet warms even faster, a dangerous feedback loop. Scientists already see this happening. The Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than the global average. If all ice melted, global temperatures could soar by several degrees, triggering extreme heat waves, longer droughts, and widespread crop failures. Warmer oceans mean more energy for storms. Hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones would grow more powerful, striking with unprecedented force. Flooding would devastate coastal areas, while heavy rainfall would inundate inland regions. At the same time, Melting ice would dump vast amounts of fresh water into the oceans. This could disrupt major currents like the Gulf Stream, which carries warm water from the tropics up toward Europe. If the Gulf Stream shuts down or weakens significantly, Europe could actually experience freezing winters, even as the rest of the planet overheats. This paradox is something climate scientists, including those at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, have been warning about for years. The entire climate system would be thrown into chaos. The polar regions aren't just empty ice, they are thriving ecosystems. Polar bears, seals, penguins, and countless seabirds depend on the ice for survival. If the ice melts, they lose their hunting grounds, their breeding spaces, and ultimately their chance of survival. According to the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, polar bears could be nearly extinct by the end of this century if sea ice loss continues. Penguin colonies in Antarctica are already declining due to changing ice patterns. And it's not just the pole's glaciers feed rivers that billions of people and animals rely on. The loss of these freshwater sources would devastate ecosystems from the Himalayas to the Andes. Now imagine the human toll. 2 billion people displaced means the largest migration crisis in history. Where would they go? Inland cities would become overcrowded. Nations would close their borders. Tensions would rise. The economic cost would be staggering. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, estimates that unchecked climate change could reduce global GDP by up to 30% by 2100. Food production would collapse in many regions. Fisheries would be destroyed as oceans warm and acidify. Wars over water and arable land could erupt. This isn't just an environmental crisis, it's a humanitarian one. A 70-meter rise in sea level would redraw the map of Earth entirely. The outlines of continents would look unfamiliar. The U.S. would lose much of its East Coast and Gulf Coast. South America's Amazon basin would become a massive inland sea. Africa's Nile Delta would vanish. Asia's coastlines would retreat by hundreds of kilometers. Even inland areas wouldn't be safe. Rising seas would push salt water into groundwater supplies, poisoning crops and drinking water. Meanwhile, new lakes and seas would form in previously dry areas. Future generations would grow up on a planet with coastlines and landscapes unrecognizable to us today. So, what if all the polar ice melted? The results would be catastrophic. A global sea level rise of up to 70 meters, the drowning of major cities, the erasure of entire nations, the extinction of iconic wildlife, mass human displacement, and a climate system thrown into chaos. And here's the scary part. While complete melting might take thousands of years, the process has already begun. Glaciers in Greenland and Antarctica are retreating faster than predicted. The Arctic could see ice-free summers within decades. Experts like Dr. James Hansen, a former NASA climate scientist, warned that unless we drastically reduce carbon emissions, parts of this scenario could become reality far sooner than we think. But there is still hope. Every fraction of a degree we prevent in warming matters. Every ton of carbon dioxide we don't emit slows the melting. The choices humanity makes today will decide whether this terrifying future becomes inevitable or avoidable. Thank you for watching What If All the Polar Ice Melted? If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to What If Multiverse for more thought-provoking scenarios about our planet and beyond.